houses have a lot of extra stuff to them. So one of the things I want to do is just quickly go over some of the terminology that you run into with buying a house. Now, some of this you'll find, with everything, right? Like a down payment, that's the money that you use at the beginning. You have that for other things too, right? Like a car or whatever. But when you're buying, if you're buying something like a refrigerator at Home Depot or something like that, and you say, okay, I'm gonna do the financing option or something like that, you're not going to run into things like closing costs. When you buy a house, you have things like closing costs, okay? And closing costs go to pay things like the realtor fees and the lawyer fees and the title company. Sometimes the bank will charge you a fee for creating a loan because they have to do all the paperwork, okay? So closing costs refer to all of the fees and the buyer, the buyer pays when they buy the house. Okay, points are not something that you will always have, okay? It's something that you can have sometimes. So the idea of points is these are percentage points of the amount of money that you borrow, right? So if we say like 3 points, it's 3% of the money that you're borrowing, okay? And the idea is that sometimes the bank will give you the option to pay points, so you're paying extra money ahead of time to get a better interest rate. Okay, and we'll look at an example of that later on. Okay, earnest money is like a deposit that holds the house for you. So like if you say, okay, I'm going to buy this house, you say, all right, we're going to sign a contract. And when we sign a contract, you have to pay a little bit now so that they can feel confident taking the house off the market while they, figure out the deal. Okay. So usually when you buy a house, you don't walk away with the keys of the house, that day. You're going to do a closing later. Earnest money sort of holds the house for you. Okay, amortization is like what we just did. That's the repayment schedule. We only call it an amortization, though, when we're buying a house, because for a house, we call it a mortgage. It's kind of the same as, any other loan, but, houses there's so much more details to them. They get some of their own special words. Okay. Escrow is something interesting that's a little bit separate from everything, from sort of the loan itself. Okay, so an escrow is there's a number of different ways where you can use something in escrow. So the definition, right? This is a financial agreement where a third party holds and regulates payments of funds for two parties to complete a transaction. Okay, so for example, if I'm buying a house, but in order to buy the house, I have to sell my house and use some of that money towards buying the new house, okay? The way that you might arrange that is you say, okay, the sale of the house isn't going to go into my checking account. The sale of my house is going to go into an escrow account that will then be used to buy the other house, okay? So that way people can feel confident that no funny business is going to occur, okay? Because some other, third party is going to hold the money, okay? There's another way that escrow is used. When you go to buy a house, the bank is going to loan you money. The bank wants to make sure that their loan is secure, okay? So when I buy a house, if I don't pay the taxes on my house, then, the county or state or whoever can come by and say, you haven't paid the taxes and take your house away. Now, they don't take your house away right away, but the point is that you can lose your house if you never pay your taxes. The bank gave you a bunch of money for this house, and if you lose the house, then they're going to lose their investment. So the bank is interested in keeping the house safe. Also, if your house burns down, the bank has lost their investment. So they want to make sure it's insured. So oftentimes the bank will say you have to have your taxes paid and you have to have homeowners insurance. And in order to make sure that you don't mess up and not pay those, the bank says, we will pay those, but we're going to pay it using your money, okay? So oftentimes what happens is you will have what's called an escrow account that you have to put money into. That's going to be part of your monthly payment that at the, once a year, the bank will use to pay your taxes and to pay your insurance. Okay. So we'll look at an example that includes that. All right, Couple more things. And again, these are things that you're not going to see a lot of in your homework questions, but I think that it's probably very helpful to have talked about. FHA loan is a special type of loan that you can get if you're having trouble qualifying for a loan, right? So these are loans insured by the Federal Housing Administration, abbreviated FHA. Okay. So what happens is if I have bad credit, or maybe I've never bought something big before, I don't have very good credit, or bad credit score or something like that. I can apply for an FHA loan, and the federal government will help secure my loan. They're not really giving me money. What they're doing is they're giving the bank some security that the loan will be secured, so that the bank can give me like a reasonable rate. If a bank thinks I'm very risky, they're either going to charge me a lot of interest or just not loan to me at all. So this helps people get loans at a more reasonable rate. A similar thing is a VA loan if you're a veteran, or if you're married to a veteran, or you can get loans through the Veterans Affairs Department, and they give you nice deals. Okay, this last thing is something I think that's going to be important to talk about. PMI, private mortgage insurance. When a bank loans you money for a house, okay, if you don't pay for that house, they can take it away from you, okay? They kick you out, they take the house, and they sell it to try and recover the money for their loan, okay? The problem with that process is if the house costs $300,000, for example, okay? Let's suppose you don't put any money down. You just walk in and you never make a payment. And they say, okay, we're gonna have to evict you and foreclose on the house. Foreclosure is when they take the house away from you. Okay. There's money involved in that process for them. And they might have to pay some money to fix things up and to resell it and stuff like that. So they're not going to get their full $300,000 back. Okay. And take a hit on that. And so what they do is they say, okay, if you made a down payment, suppose you paid 20% of the cost of the house, then it's a $300,000 house, but they didn't lend you a full $300,000, right? Okay. If they only lent you 80% of that, maybe they only lent you $240,000. Okay. Then when they take it away from you and they go to resell it, they can still recover their full $240,000, right? So if they've incurred other costs, they can still cover that. They don't give you back your down payment when they foreclose on you. But if I didn't make a big down payment, if I made a small down payment or no down payment, then they're a little bit at risk. So they might say, in order to give you the loan, we need to have insurance. And they make you pay for that insurance. Now, all sales are different, so this isn't like an always thing, but this is very common. If you make less than 20% of your down payment, of the cost as a down payment, the bank will make you pay this, okay? Okay, so the bank makes you pay this. This does not help you ever. You never benefit from private mortgage insurance. If the house gets foreclosed on, the insurance is for the bank, not for you. Okay. The other thing that you need to be aware of for this, once you have paid off 20% of the value of your home, so I've been making payments for a few years or whatever, maybe now I've paid it down, I can stop paying my private mortgage insurance. Okay. But I have to know to do that. Like I have to fill out a paperwork to do that. It's not always automatic. Okay, so this is something very important to keep in mind. If you're buying a house, if you're paying less than 20%, this is an extra cost that you're probably going to be charged. And you can stop paying for it. You don't have to pay for this the whole 30 years. Okay, but you have to be aware of it to stop paying it.